Hey! We come from that muddy river, funny looking and nearly blind. Colorado River, Gila, Saifa, Seepop, Bovani of the humpback kind. We want to frolic and spawn our whole lives long in the shade under whalers' boat, in the sky blue waters at the mouth of the little sea.
Humpback chub is an endangered fish of the Cyprinidae family. It's a very unique little minnow, and it evolved very well in a very dynamic and high sediment load river system. It's actually quite a beautiful fish. It's silvery and beautiful forked tail, and obviously the big hump behind the head that makes it very characteristic. It used to exist pretty much river-wide, system-wide, and due to some changes that came in when the dam came in, it's become endangered. Changes in water temperature and flow regime, and also sediment transport. And they've also been affected by the introduction of some non-native fish that compete with them and also prey on them. And so they are now endangered. The biggest spawning aggregation of them is around the Little Colorado, which is a tributary that comes into the Grand Canyon, probably 70 some miles down from the dam. We are collecting fish from the Little Colorado River, and we're going to actually transport them into Shinumo Creek to form, ideally, a second aggregation in Grand Canyon. Rather than having just one aggregation, which could be prone to all sorts of disaster, just to have some sort of insurance policy against any sort of catastrophic accidents upstream of the Little Colorado or other changes that we can't anticipate. It's a great project in that we have many experts coming together and working really well to get this accomplished. We are partnering, in addition to the National Park Service, with the Arizona Game and Fish Department, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Bureau of Reclamation. We made 2 collection trips in the summer and fall of 2008 with the intention to collect 300 of the young of the year fish that were then helicoptered out to the top of the Little Colorado. We drove them to a hatchery down around Cottonwood, Arizona. Those fish again were driven to a hatchery in New Mexico, which was a 10-hour drive for them. And they were treated there for Asian tapeworm, a parasite, and also for Lernia, which is an anchorworm. The fish were pit tagged at the hatchery, which allows us to have a record of each individual fish that we put into Shinumo Creek, and we can actually track progress as we monitor them afterwards. The pit tag tells us who they are and where we've caught them before and what size they were. And eventually they left the hatchery. They were driven another 10 hours from the hatchery in New Mexico to the top of the South Rim. Then they were helicoptered to the translocation site in Shinumo Creek and tempered and released into the creek. And we had about 7 mortalities total in that entire process, which is very exciting. These are some well-traveled fish. Shinumo Creek is about 50 miles downstream of the Little Colorado.
Part of the Grand Canyon National Parks mission and the National Park Service mission is to try to restore native ecosystems. It's a difficult balancing act at times between recreational opportunities and restoring native communities. The humpback chub is a highly endangered fish, and so we have taken on the effort here in Shinumo Creek. It's one of the many steps we take to recover and try to restore the native fish community in Grand Canyon. Shinumo Creek was chosen as a translocation site because it provides good water chemistry in terms of temperature, pH, and connectivity. It has an acceptable food base to support a humpback chub population, And it's also in a wilderness setting that receives a pretty small amount of recreational and other impacts.
The stream looks very suitable, and it has a lot of dynamic characteristics, riffles that would be perfect for young fish, pools and runs that are absolutely adequate for the adults. This tributary currently doesn't have brown trout. This tributary is only having rainbow trout, which we're putting an effort into to reduce those numbers.
All right, let's go.
Okay, we're putting electricity in the water to stun the fish, so we're able to capture them with the nets. Rainbow trout are a non-native species here, and they were stocked in the 20s and 30s. But we've already been through here removing as many trout as we can through various methods: angling, electrofishing, seining, hoop nets. And we've removed several hundred in the last few days. Trying to move as many rainbow trout as we can to give the translocated humpback chubs the best chance they can to make it here. That was a native species of speckled dace we just captured. Another speckled dace. Bluehead sucker, another native species. Phil is trying to hit all the different habitat units because sometimes you get young of the year or you're slower swimming fish in the backwaters. Sometimes you miss them too. Got it. Non-native rainbow trout.
She hand me that bucket since that is so slick right there. Thank you. All right, what we have here is a bucket full of native speckled dace. Those are most of the small fish. And then some bluehead suckers, which are also native. And then we have 2 rainbow trout, and those are the non-native fish that we're trying to remove from this creek, Shinumo Creek. And we're going to measure them now because we want to get a good size range on the fish. Okay, so we're going to measure these bluehead suckers. So this fish is 235 millimeters. And then we checked them to see if they have tuberculation on the tail, which is a sign of spawning. This one is not tuberculated. Okay, so here's one of the native fish. It's a speckled dace. This is close to their full size. They don't get very much bigger than that. They only live for about 3 or 4 years. But it's one of the most common of the native fishes of the Colorado River system. 77 speckled dace. Feisty little fish. Speckled dace. 72. Okay, and here's one of the non-native trout that we're going to measure. And we'll put him back in the bucket and later dispose of him away from the stream. He's 193 millimeters. Okay, here's a age 1 trout. He's 75 millimeters. You want to go faster than the fish. We have quite a few native fish, speckled dace for the most part. These native dace are about the same size as the humpback chub that we're going to be transplanting soon. We set this net. This is the Humpback Chub Translocation pool, and we set these hoop nets in here in an attempt to remove all of the non-native trout that are in here. Put it over the bucket and shake out the fish. So we have a ton of bluehead suckers in there. Many, many suckers. Okay, this is a really nice bluehead sucker. It's one of the largest probably that we'll find in this creek. It's an adult. It's several years old. It's hard to say how old. This is a really great pool. It's so deep. It's really the best one to put the humpback chub in tomorrow because there's so much space in there, and we've really done a good job, I think, of removing the trout in here.
I'm sure that Chris Cantrell of the Game and Fish Department will want to be at each of these sites to oversee
for
it,
just
too.
at least a few minutes.
Yeah.
Wow, yes. Longer than that. Even.
Yeah.
Swim temp is 16.
Oh, that's
16.
good.
Nice.
Good.
They can start spawning any moment then, as soon as they hit the water.
They get a little precocious in the hatchery, so.
That's the magic water temperature, 16 degrees. So if everybody can grab a bucket.
And there they are, swimming around, looking healthy and happy. All right, so take a net. We're gonna dip out some fish. And then we need to turn on the aerator.
Game and Fish coolers. So they'll dump all the junk that we have in the coolers out of the helipad
30.
in some kind of pile.
Okay, and so put that lid on the bucket.
Kelly, you want to manage that?
It's a beautiful little humpback chub that was taken from the Little Colorado River last July or October.
Kelly, that lid's already on.
And, you don't want it to stay out of the water too long.
Next one up.
It's been raised in 2 different hatcheries over winter and now transported here by helicopter for release into Shinumo Creek.
This one's ready to go.
We're going to continuously check the temperature on the fish against the temperature in the creek to make sure that they don't get too warm in the buckets. Even though we're in the shade here, there's certainly a possibility of them heating up beyond a little bit too high. The creek right now is at 16 degrees and the fish are at 18 degrees. Well, the water that the fish are in is in 18 degrees. So we'll be slowly adding water to the buckets to bring the temperature into line. So I'm getting 17 in the bucket right now. So that's good. All the fish are looking great.
The nuchal hump is on the back of the fish, and supposedly the hump allows them to be more stable in really turbulent flow.
Nice. You get a bigger hump on your back,
They can't be eaten.
and that you start to get out of the average size of the mouth of that particular river predator,
They can't get
like
out.
that. So if you're bigger than that, they can't eat you.
And that's why both the humpback chub and the razorback sucker have that
Yeah,
kind
that
of
big
protrusion behind their heads.
They're
That
a lot
the
on their
larger
back.
predators in the river should probably release pretty soon. It almost seems like the bucket temperature is going up.
Yeah.
And
No, I don't think they're getting much
they're not
cooler.
getting any cooler.
Unless we decide that
They're getting farther apart, not closer together. Yeah, I would.
That lid may be a little difficult to get off. We're going to touch it very slow. They're excited about it. There goes the first humpback Oh, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. Look at him go. Oh, wonderful.
Wow, this is good. We like it. We like it.
Look at him. Oh, look at him take it over. Oh, that is
Good.
Next bucket. That is so cool. That is such a good time.
Oh, they are. They're all hanging out right under there. We could probably get some.
That is cool. Nice going, y'all. Hey, That is fabulous.
And just kind of tilt it over and let them swim out at their own speed. Oh yeah.
Very happy.
There they go. Looking good. Come on out, little girls and boys.
Sure about that.
They're chasing away all the days. Oh yeah. There they are. I can see some behind you. Are they going? Oh, there they are.
Right up into the current.
There's some up in there. They're following the current.
Yeah, totally.
It's wonderful. National Park Service, Bureau of Reclamation, Grand Canyon Wildlands Council, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Arizona Game and Fish Department, and a number of volunteers at the Grand Canyon Wildlands Council has arranged to come here and help. And it's just been a wonderful process of everybody getting to know each other and working together.
The pit tag is a passive integrated transponder. You can see it here. These get inserted into the fish and it's got a unique number. The fish has this inside it, swims over, and this tag reads as it goes over this antenna. The reason why we have these two antennas is so that we can tell the direction that the fish was swimming. If the fish swims over number 1 first, the time that it swam over there is registered in our data logger. Then it swims over number 2, and that time is registered in the data logger. So if it swims number 1 to 2, it's going downstream. If the time shows number 2 to number 1, we know the fish is swimming upstream. This is our solar array with 125 watt solar panels, 4 of them giving us 500 watts of power while we're trying to monitor the fish. So 30 yards up from the pit tag antenna arrays, we have a Park Service gauge that is measuring water flow. It also measures conductivity, water temperature, and dissolved oxygen in the water.
The information is going to be used to just sort of investigate whether or not the chub in Shinumo Creek are actually out migrating into the Colorado River. We need to know how many of the original fish that were stocked in the creek are left, how that affects the genetic diversity of a reproducing population.
In the future, we will absolutely come back and monitor this population to see how they survive, to see if they maintain themselves in the creek. Do they grow? If they do go into the main stem, they hopefully will contribute to the populations of humpback chub that currently exist. If, in the best of situations, they maintain themselves, they reproduce, and they have offspring, we could potentially have a second population within Shinumo Creek.
I just would like to say that today, being up in Shinumo Creek and sitting and watching these fish enter this environment and seeing them take their place amongst the other native fish that are there, the speckled dace and the bluehead suckers, and all of them kind of looking at each other in this new arena, how exciting and wonderful that is, that we can do things that are the culmination of a dream we have. Holding them in your hand, you feel the Colorado River in the muscle and the way they are. They're so different from other fish. And to see them arrive in this creek was really just a magical experience for me. They represent the culmination of evolution in concert with the river. So we see this beautiful structure in their bodies that sort of embodies the river because they are so well adapted to flow and turbidity and all the things that make this the Grand Canyon.
For all the money spent studying us, we could use a couple extra grand. We want to buy us a humpback timeshare condo aquarium in Disneyland. Boney and the Rounder got a hot scam going on a worm ranch east of Grants. And Lucy wants the money to try out one of those silicone hump implants.
After the fish were put in there in June, we've gone and done 2 monitoring trips. One of the most exciting parts of the monitoring was actually the snorkeling. When we first went back in July, we had no idea if we would see any fish whatsoever. And the first step that we decided to do was to snorkel the entire reach and just see if we could locate fish along the way before we even set out any nets. And to go into a little tiny pool in Shinumo Creek and have humpback chub swimming out everywhere was just incredible. Yeah. And we've actually, of the 300 that we put in, we've actually handled 178, which is tremendous. It's a great number. We could never have hoped to actually have our hands on that many that quickly. We're able to go back and find them again. They're spreading throughout the creek. They're growing really well. There's another trip planned for the spring, for next spring, to see how they fared in the winter. So we will be going back in after spring runoff to try to see where the chub are. In the course of those 4 trips this summer, we ran into a lot of different kind of folks. We ran into backpackers, private river runners, commercial river trips, and I have to say every single person I talked to was really enthusiastic. I mean, they definitely saw this big mechanical array as they passed a certain area, but people were really excited about the humpback chub, and especially when it went well, and they got to see for themselves. I mean, we handed people snorkel masks sometimes and let them look underwater at the humpback chub swimming around with the bluehead suckers and everybody, and it was very positive for, I think, the people that got to be a part of that. So yes, there is some effect on visitation, but there's also a really positive angle too for folks to get to see that conservation in action. It was pretty cool.
Hey! We come from that muddy river, funny looking and nearly blind. Colorado River, Gila, Saifa, Seepop, Bovani of the humpback kind. We want to frolic and spawn our whole lives long in the shade under Whaler's boat, in the sky blue waters at the mouth of the little sea. Beep on 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 beep on